Well, welcome back here to the launch pad. We are live for our launch coverage of Starlink-23. We're going to patch in here our friend Marcus, who is live actually at Kennedy, and we're going to start our full live commentary probably about T-minus 30 minutes. We're currently T50, but we're going to just listen into what's happening live at Kennedy Space Center at the Apollo Center, where they have just started their in-person live commentary for today's launch. So let's listen in.
In the near future. So again, the two launch pads that are in front of you, these are NASA's launch pads. 39B to the left, 39A to the right. They're both roughly about 4 miles away from us. Those were built in the 1960s for the Apollo Moon program, redesigned in the 1970s for the space shuttle, and now they're being used for new programs. 39B is going to be used by NASA for its new rocket called Space Launch System. That first Space Launch System is being assembled right now in that big gray and tan building over there, the vehicle assembly building in Highway number 3. The doors are closed, you can't see it. But it is based on space shuttle technology. If you want to see what Space Launch System looks like, when you get back to the visitor complex, go into the IMAX building, and on the far west side, we have an exhibit called NASA Now. You'll see a 1/25th scale model of Space Launch System. Kind of looks like Space Shuttle and has a big orange tank in the middle and the white boosters on either side. The big difference is that we have a capsule on the top called Orion, and you'll see the first Orion to fly inside NASA Now. So the first Orion on top of Space Launch System is scheduled to launch from R39B around the end of this year, and that rocket is being assembled right now in the vehicle assembly building. The capsule is here down in our industrial area, so everything is being put together to do an uncrewed demonstration flight from 39B, hopefully by the end of the year. And what that will do, send the capsule on a 24-day mission to orbit around the moon and actually go further out into what we call cislunar space, which is the area around the moon. And we'll do a 24-day mission to demonstrate that we can send astronauts not just to the moon, but also beyond the moon, with the eventual goal of pushing on to Mars by the end of the next decade. So if all of that goes well, then the first flight with astronauts will be probably sometime around 2023, replicating the same program. And then around the middle of the decade, we hope to be landing on the moon again. So all the components are in place. They're either arriving here now, or for the future missions, they're being assembled right now in places across the country to launch them here later in the decade. It's all part of a program called Project Artemis. And Artemis in Greek mythology was the twin sister of Apollo and the goddess of the moon, which tells you when the name came from. So Artemis is alive and well and healthy. The parts for that first launch, Artemis 1, by the end of the year are either here or shortly arriving here, and they'll be assembled in that building to launch from 39B, targeting the end of this year. Then coming over to roughly about your 1 o'clock is 39A. All the missions that put astronauts on the moon launch from 39A. And then on the space shuttle program, 135 launches in the space shuttle program. 82 were from 39A, 53 from 39B. When the shuttle program ended, NASA leased 39A to SpaceX. They used that for the Falcon 9 and the bigger version called the Falcon Heavy. Falcon Heavy is 3 Falcon 9s put together side by side. You may have seen Falcon Heavy launches on the news, especially a couple of years ago when it launched for the first time, because SpaceX founder Elon Musk put on top his cherry red Tesla Roadster. Personally, I wish it was in a museum, but I didn't get a vote. And he has sent that on ours. There is a website out there. I don't remember the exact URL for it, but if you do a Google search on where is Tesla Roadster, it'll actually give you an animation that shows you where that is as it loops in space, going back and forth between Earth and Mars orbit. So they've done 2 more Falcon Heavy launches since then. They have another one planned later this year, doing a mission for the military. So right now, Falcon Heavy is the most powerful rocket by thrust on the planet, with 5.1 million pounds of thrust. Saturn V and the Space Shuttle did 7.5 million pounds of thrust. The Space Launch System, when operational, we believe that's going to be 8.8 million pounds of thrust. So that'll be even more powerful than the Saturn V. So then coming out to about your 1:30 is Launch Complex 41. As we said, that's over at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, and that's leased United Launch Alliance for the Atlas V and a new rocket called Falcon. So they are in the process of transitioning from the Atlas V to Vulcan. And the basic differences between the two, Atlas V has been around for almost 20 years now. It is reliable technology, but it's not cost efficient. As most of you know, SpaceX has been landing their rockets so they can be refurbished and flown again. The rocket that's scheduled to launch here at 12:34 p.m. has launched 6 times before. So if it is successful, it will be launching for the 7th time. They have one rocket that's launched 8 times. They have one rocket that's launched 9 times. So obviously, if we can use the same rocket over and over, it brings the cost down. So United Launch Alliance, to remain competitive, is designing a new rocket called Vulcan. And as I said, it's named after the planet in the Star Trek TV series. It is partially reusable. So what will happen is when a Vulcan launches off pad 41, as it goes up into space, the engines on the bottom will separate, and then a parachute will come out as it comes back into the atmosphere, and a helicopter will pluck it out of the air and bring them back so the engines can be used again. United Launch Alliance believes that it's not worth the cost and the extra fuel to try to retrieve the fuselage that has the fuel tanks and all of that. So they're going to let that fall back into the ocean. So temporarily, 41 is going to be used for both the Atlas V and for Vulcan. Atlas V next launch, I think, sometime in May. They're going to be launching a observation satellite for the military. And then also sometime probably in May, they're going to be launching for Boeing their Starliner commercial crew capsule. They will be taking astronauts to and from the space station later this year. They have to do an uncrewed demonstration flight. That's probably sometime in May from 41. And then around the end of this year, if all goes well, they'll be sending astronauts to the space station from there at pad 41. So to solve the problem of having two different types of rockets using one pad, United Launch Alliance came up with an ingenious solution, which they basically have two different mobile launchers, one that brings out the Atlas V and a different design that brings out the Vulcan. And the interesting thing is that the vertical tower that supports the Vulcan, shaped like that. I'm just saying, but that's what it looks like. So if you look out there on 41, between the two groups of lightning towers, there's a big gray tower that sticks out to the left. That's the tower that the astronauts will go up to get into the capsule on top of the Atlas V. But to the right of that, that's the mobile launcher that will be used. I believe that's the one for Vulcan. When you see it up close, it's shaped like that. So who says there isn't any sense of humor in the space space? And coming over to 40, again, that's where our launch is going to be. So for people who are arriving, I know you're asking where the launch is going to be. So if you look out to your right about your 2 o'clock, 2:30, you're going to see a yellow construction crane sticking up to the right of that. Two groups of lightning towers, and there's a shorter stick in the middle. That's the Falcon 9 that's scheduled to launch at 12:34 p.m. And that is about 6.2 miles away from where we are. So right now, that's the closest line of sight the public can have is from here the closest you can be to see that launch. Common question we're asked, is it going to launch? And I always say I'll let you know when I see it leave the pad. Nothing is guaranteed. This is what is called an instant window. Basically what that means is people ask, well, how do you decide what time you're going to launch? Depends on your destination. So if I want to send something to the people right in front of me here, I'm on planet Earth, and planet Earth is rotating. So no, yes, no. SpaceX has a very specific idea of where they want to put these 60 Starlink satellites. So the calculations work out that if it can hit that target today, that has to launch at 12:34 p.m. So if something goes wrong, they can't just wait and fix it today. They're going to have to go another day. Now, as I said, they need to launch many more satellites over the next few years to create a fully operational Starlink. A couple of months ago, they had one launch that got postponed. The weather was going to be bad at a certain time. But they said, you know what? We're going to have to put satellites at this other location. So let's push back a few hours until the weather front moves through, and let's just go to that different location instead. So, there are launch windows and there are launch windows. So hopefully when the audio feed starts from SpaceX sometime around 12:15, 12:20, we'll be hearing them talking about what the situation is and if all the technology is going well. You'll see me looking at my cell phone like I am right now, just looking to make sure everything is A-OK, as they used to say in the old days. And today is what they say is nominal. So if you want to follow along and you have access to Twitter, the SpaceX Twitter account is at SpaceX. Also, the local newspaper, Florida Today, their Twitter account is at Florida_today. There's also a live chat on their homepage, which is floridatoday.com. They do a live chat, which should start right now. They're right over at the press site on the other side of the vehicle assembly building. So they would be also giving you live updates. So I'm looking through Twitter right now. No news is good news. As of 8 minutes ago, local press is saying we're still looking good. 90% chance favorable weather for 12:34 p.m. Now, what can cause a rocket not to go? Well, of course, it can be a technical problem. They start fueling this rocket about 38 minutes before launch, so I think right about now they should start fueling the rocket. And it could be that as they start to fuel the rocket and they start to build up pressure to force those fuels through the rocket, that some sensor says it's not working right and shuts it down, and then they have to postpone. Again, they've done over 100 of these, so that's increasingly rare, but it does happen from time to time. Weather can also delay us. I don't think that's a problem, but I'm not a meteorologist. And then there's other foreseen events. So, for example, the Coast Guard out here will publish warnings as to what direction that rocket's going to go. The FAA publishes warnings for where it's going to go through the air to warn off commercial aircraft. But sometimes you get people who think that doesn't apply to them. And so they'll try to fly their planes or sail their ships into the exclusion zones. And for safety reasons, they have to delay, or in this case, because of the instant window, they have to cancel the launches scheduled another day. So that happens sometimes. I have seen launches canceled because somebody sails their boat in and tries to get a closer look, and they can't get them out of here in time. Let me tell you a little bit more about what's going on with some of the fueling on here. Coming back to 39A, which is being used for human space flight. SpaceX, we mentioned earlier that Boeing is going to be flying astronauts to the space station around the end of the year. SpaceX has been sending astronauts to the space station since May of last year. They sent 2 astronauts in May on a demonstration flight. Last November, they sent 4 astronauts. And coming up, targeting no earlier than April 22nd at 6:11 a.m., they'll be launching another 4 astronauts from here at 39A to send them to the International Space Station. But what is truly exciting, I know I get asked questions all the time about when people in the private sector, you and me, can go to space. It's getting very close. SpaceX has already announced 2 different launches or missions within the next year. They're going to have private crew. So one is through a company out of Houston called Axiom Space. It was formed a few years ago by people who had worked on the International Space Station. They are building their own expandable commercial habitat they hope to attach to the space station here within a couple of years. But they also have a deal with SpaceX to send their private crews up to that habitat when it's operational. Until then, they are dotting the I's and crossing the T's with NASA to allow Axiom to send private crews to the space station as it is right now for about 8 to 10 days. So they have announced earlier this year, Axiom announced a crew of 4. It's going to be commanded by former space shuttle astronaut Michael Lopez Alegria, and then 3 participants who are wealthy entrepreneurs who are also adventure seekers. They're going to be going through astronaut training here for the next year. They'll be using SpaceX facilities, Axiom facilities. I'm sure they'll be using NASA facilities at Johnson Space Center in Houston, where we manage our human spaceflight program. So they're going to get pretty close to astronaut training. And as you read through a little bit more about the people who are going, one is the former Israeli test pilot, I believe. Another one is a gentleman from Canada. So they are talking to their governments, their universities, their private sectors about what kind of microgravity research they're going to be able to do. And they're saying that mission launching from here at 39A would be probably no earlier than January of next year. And the capsule they will launch in is the one that took the crew in November up to the space station. So that capsule should be coming back sometime around the end of April. And we'll be trying to land the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Cape Canaveral here. And then SpaceX will refresh that and get it ready to fly the first private crew to go to the space station, probably, like I said, early next year. Now, separate from that, and you can Google this. I think the website's inspiration.org. number4.com. So INSIPIRATION, the number4.com, or just Google Inspiration 4. There was a wealthy entrepreneur who got the idea to raise money for St. Jude's Hospital in Tennessee, which does cancer patients, by helping subsidize a private flight in space using SpaceX. So the 4 seats, he's going to take one. There was another wealthy person, a venture seeker, who bought the second seat, and the other 2 went up for a charity raffle for people like you and me. And so they were chosen based on the fact they gave a certain amount of money to St. Jude's, and they got them into the pool, and then their resumes were reviewed, and they were chosen. One of them is a woman named Haley Arsenault, who is 29 years old. She is a cancer survivor. She was treated at St. Jude's. She has an artificial femur because she had bone cancer. So she will be going up on this particular that they're talking about. And so she'll be the first person who has an artificial implant in their body to go up into space. And if she does go up at age 29, she'll be the youngest American to go into space as well. So they're not going to go to the space station. They don't require as much training as people going to the space station. They're basically going to go up to about 400 miles. Space station's at 250 miles, so they're going to go up to about 400 miles for about 3 days. SpaceX recently unveiled that where the top of the Dragon docks to the space station, instead of having a door and a docking mechanism to connect the space station, it's going to have a big dome we call the cupola. And so they're going to be able to poke out into that as they're orbiting in space 400 miles up there and being able to look around. So they haven't revealed how much that wealthy entrepreneur is paying for that to happen. With the Axiom mission, they haven't revealed that either. Elon Musk did say a couple of years ago that they thought that the price point for commercial missions like this might be something around $55 million. I know several of you have that in your pocket. But anyway, so even though it is not yet affordable for 99.
So I'm going to jump in here. You've been listening into our live feed from Kennedy Space Center. Thanks to Marcus, who is on location for us today. This is a live view from Marcus of Space Launch Complex 40, holding the Falcon 9, getting ready to launch with Starlink-23. We're going to keep listening in, but I just want to quickly jump on here and say, welcome back to the launch pad. My name is Zach. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. Here at the pad, we cover everything space, space flight, space engineering, and the future of space and STEM. And we're so glad you're here with us for our live launch coverage of Starlink-23. We're trying something new. This is the first time we've had our own feed from the center, so we bear with us as we navigate learning how to do this, but we're so glad that you're here. Take a moment, let us know in the comments where you are watching from. If this is your first time, let us know that as well. To all of our friends watching over on Facebook, we've got one big ask, is if you do have a YouTube account, come on, join us over on YouTube. I know you've got a few hundred subscribers already, but what's one more? Can we get to 500 subscribers before we have launch? We are at T-minus 33 minutes and some seconds. Propellant load has begun, and we are monitoring SpaceX's feed. And once they go live, we're going to patch that in here along with our feed as well. So we are here. We are joining. We see lots of people. We've got England, US, Canada, Netherlands, lots of people. So let us know where you're watching from, who you're watching with. Welcome. Hit that link in the comments. Subscribe to us over on YouTube. That's a huge help, and we're going to keep listening in. I'll start my live commentary in just a little bit, but welcome here. Share the broadcast. Let people know that we are coming up on T-minus 30 minutes for the launch of Starlink-23. Welcome to the launch pad.
Until last night, so we didn't publicize it on our website at all. We just sent out a tweet last night saying, if you come, we're going to bust you out here anyway, and you're more welcome to watch the launch. So every launch is different. Any other questions? Just raise your hand. Yes, sir, way in the back. What's the difference between the 10 different NASA centers? Well, I have a half hour to fill, so I'm going to give you the long answer instead of the short version. NASA was preceded by its predecessor, the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics. Aeronautics is the science of flight. That goes back to 1915. So in much of the 20th century, the government had aeronautics research facilities around the country. One was in Wallops, Virginia, the one in Cleveland, various places. And at the same time, the military was also doing its own research and development. And one of them was they had a contract with the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California, to develop jet propulsion, which evolved into rocket engines, little thrusters, for example, that sort of thing. So when NASA was created in 1958, in response to the misperception that American technology was inferior to the Soviet Union, another reason was that we decided to separate civilian from military spaceflight because the Russians were using military rockets to launch their payloads. We didn't want to make it look like that we were militarizing space. So military did continue with its research and something that today is called DARPA. But for civilian purposes, that's what NASA was created for. And so the legislation that created NASA in 1958 absorbed a lot of existing facilities that performed other functions. So the contract that the Army had with Caltech for jet propulsion over to NASA, Wallops came over to NASA. What's the thing called the Glenn Center at Plumbrook outside Cleveland, that came over. Same here, that originally rockets were launching over the then Cape Canaveral Air Station. NASA was a secondary tenant down there. They were using military rockets to launch payloads. Then when President Kennedy says man moon in a decade, we knew we had to build a much bigger rocket. We needed a lot more room. That was when they bought up all of the land here to create what is today Kennedy Space Center. Houston is used for what is for managing American human spaceflight. So the astronauts live and train in Houston, but they can launch from here. In the future, they can launch from somewhere else. Early days of the space shuttle was going to launch not just from here, but also from Vandenberg Air Force Base in Southern California. So you have a launch control here, or you can have a launch control in Vandenberg. Once it gets into space and it's circling there, who cares where you are? So there are 10 different NASA centers across the country, each of which performs a different function. Ours is to launch payloads into space. Houston is for human space flight. And like I said, you've got all these other centers across the country that perform other functions. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Will you be able to hear it? Well, I would think so. Every launch is different. The important thing to keep in mind is that sound travels much slower than light. Sound takes about 5 seconds to travel a mile. You're 6.2 miles from the launch pad, so maybe 25 to 30 seconds before you hear anything. So when you see it going up and you see the vapor trail and all of that, and you think, oh, bummer, I don't hear anything, just like I said, give it about 25, 30 seconds and you'll hear it. People ask me, does the ground shake? I spent the first 52 years of my life in Southern California where the ground does shake, and I can tell you the ground does not shake. I don't do this. The closest I've been to a launch was a space shuttle launch about 3 miles away. The ground did not shake. However, it was in the middle of the night when it was cold, and I could put my hand up and I could feel the warmth from the launch, which was nice. Also, I could feel a little thumping on my chest, like just about like this. And I realized that's what rocket scientists refer to as a frequency. So the rocket was generating its own frequency, and that's what I was feeling. So the ground is not shaking, at least nothing that feels like an earthquake. Any other questions? So let's see, right now it is 12:05. We have 29 minutes until the launch window, 12:34 p.m. Sir. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Vulcan is United Launch Alliance Pad 41. So where you see the black tower, the white water tank, that's our 39A. Go to your right. There's a yellow construction train and keep on going. 2 groups of launch pads with a gray tower sticking up. That's 41. And that's going to be used for, it's already used for the Atlas V, and in the future will be used for Vulcan. And then to the right of that, you see a tall white building they call the Vertical Integration Facility. What you cannot see is that there are rails that are further behind there that run further down the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. So there are old buildings further down on the Cape that go back to the Titan rockets in the 1980s, Titans 3 and 4. And they are integrated and stacked in that and moved along on a rail like a conveyor line. And in the old days, one rail went to 40, which is where SpaceX is now. The other rail just went straight into 41. So as I said, the way that United Launch Alliance figured out they will launch two entirely different rocket designs from 41. They already had a mobile launcher for the Atlas V, and they built a second one with a different design for Vulcan. Like I said, it's shaped like that, which is kind of cool. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Again, where to look for today's launch. So if you look out about your 2 o'clock, 2:30, you see a yellow construction crane sticking up. To the right of that, two groups of lightning towers, and then the shorter gray stick, that's the Falcon 9 with the payload on the top with the Starlink satellites, scheduled to launch at 12:34, and right now it is 12:07, so hopefully 27 minutes. Any other questions? If you have a question, your hand is up. Question?
I'm going to jump in here. He's asking for questions on the ground, but if you have any questions for us as well, let us know in the chat. We are here monitoring those and answering the questions. If I don't have the answer, we've got Marcus on the ground, and he might have an answer. And if he doesn't have an answer, we'll ask the guy from Kennedy Space Center and get you an answer for it. I'll drop the link in for YouTube again for those that are asking for it. Again, welcome if you're just joining us. You're watching our live launch coverage from Kennedy Space Center of the launch of Starlink-23. We are currently sitting at T-minus 25 minutes, a few seconds and counting of the launch of Starlink-23. This is the 23rd operational mission of the Starlink system. We are very excited here for today's launch. It's the first day launch in quite a while, so we are excited to be bringing that to you live here today. We are monitoring SpaceX's feed as they will actually patch SpaceX into the speakers at the launch site as well for those. So we'll patch that in here once we see them go live to bring you that late breaking news from them. Generally, they go live about T-minus 15 minutes or so, but everything seems to be proceeding as normal. They have started the prop load and everything, and they have confirmed that they will be going live at T-minus 15 minutes. Right now, weather is looking good for flight, and they are proceeding towards a T-minus 0 at 12:34 p.m. Eastern or 16:34 GMT. So again, we're going to just take a listen in here, see what the sights and sounds at Kennedy Space Center are today. If you have a question, let us know in the chat. We're so glad that you are here joining us. First time with live feed from the ground, so forgive us if it's a little bumpy and shaky. We're getting used to this, but we are excited to have you here with us. So let's take a listen back in here.
Federal Express or UPS, they pull up at your house and they bring something out for you. That's all a rocket is. It's just a delivery system. You go back to the 1950s, the rockets were originally built for launching bombs to attack an enemy. And then NASA came along and we used them for putting satellites in space, putting people in space. Today, we're using them to build space stations. Axiom Space is getting ready to build their own private space station. So if you want to put anything into space, you need to use a rocket. That's all they are. They're just for making deliveries. You have a question? How many satellites are going up today? Starlink is typically 60 at a time. And as of yesterday, Gwynne Shotwell said they have about 1,320 that are working. Any other questions? All right, yes, way in the back. How big are the satellites? They say they're roughly about the size of a small refrigerator, 260 kilograms. And I looked that up on Twitter or Google, and I think that works out to about 570 pounds. So they're roughly the size of a small refrigerator you might have, something like that. All right, let me see what time it is. It's 12:11. Let me take a quick look at Twitter just to make sure everything is going okay. Now, if you can see the rocket out there, you might start to see what looks like white steam coming off of the rocket, and that is normal. It is what we call liquid oxygen as it converts into a gas. To have any kind of combustion, like you have a fire in your fireplace, you need to have the three components of what in the fire business is called the fire triangle. First, you need to have a fuel, which might be like a log or papers. You need to have a heat source, which is going to be a match or a lighter. And you need to have what's called an oxidizer, oxygen the air around you. Well, the combustion chambers on these engines works on the same principle. Your heat source is sparks being injected into the combustion chamber. Your oxidizer is liquid oxygen. To get oxygen in a liquid state, it has to be minus 297 degrees Fahrenheit or minus 183 degrees Celsius. So SpaceX started loading the liquid oxygen sometime probably just before 12 o'clock. And as it sits out in a Florida sunshine, the rocket's going to warm up. And so that liquid oxygen will start to warm up and turn from a liquid to a gas. If you don't get rid of the gas, it's going to build up the pressure and go kaboom. So anytime you watch a launch where you see the rocket sitting on the pad, you see steam floating away, that's just them getting rid of the liquid oxygen as it turns to a gas. So they keep pumping liquid oxygen into that, building up that pressure and building up how much they have in there until just before launch time. So if you do see steam floating away, that's actually a good sign because that means they're proceeding with putting the oxidizer on board. The third component of that fire triangle is the fuel. Types of fuels that have been used over the decades have changed. So, for example, if you go back to the 1930s, when Dr. Werner von Braun and his engineers were at Peenemünde, Germany, developing the V2 rocket, their fuel was a type of alcohol called ethyl alcohol. Our Redstone rocket, which is a direct descendant of the V2, there are Redstones back in the rocket garden where you began, they also used ethyl alcohol as a fuel. As we moved into the United States second generation rockets, Thor and Jupiter, which we also have back in the rocket garden, instead of alcohol, they use a type of kerosene called RP1. RP1 is still used to this day. That Falcon 9 is getting fueled right now with RP1 kerosene. Readily available, it's relatively affordable. You can keep it at room temperature, so it's not particularly hazardous. So many rockets around the world to this day, not all of them, but many of them still use RP1 kerosene as a fuel. Now, there are other types of fuels that are used out there. For example, if you come back in here to the Saturn V, the upper stages on the Saturn V, they used liquid hydrogen as a fuel. Liquid hydrogen back in the 60s was considered experimental, but it does provide about 40% better performance than RP1 kerosene, and it weighs about half of kerosene. So that was one reason they used it to go to the moon, was that they knew they'd have to use so much RP1 kerosene to send a payload to the moon. It was going to be too heavy to ever do an effective mission. The drawback with liquid hydrogen, number one, to get hydrogen in liquid state, it has to be minus 423 degrees Fahrenheit. Also, many metals come in touch with something that cold, you're going to warp or fracture. So typically you don't see many rockets these days using liquid hydrogen because it's very hazardous, very expensive. Also, it's not very dense. So if you look, when you get back at the visitor complex, the bus is going to pull up in front of Space Shuttle Atlantis to see the exact size replicas, the orange external tank and the white boosters. That orange tank was liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen. At launch time for the shuttle, 85% of the thrust was coming out of the white solid rocket boosters on the side, because even though liquid hydrogen is very light, it's not very dense. So even with that big of a tank, it wasn't capable of providing much thrust at launch time. The liquid hydrogen is really good for upper stages, not so good for getting you off the ground. So private companies typically are not using liquid hydrogen. Government vehicles such as Space Shuttle, the new Space Launch System, there are some rockets the European Space Agency has that use liquid hydrogen. There's a new rocket that China's developing that uses liquid hydrogen. They're having mixed results. So it still is used, but not for companies that are commercial and want to be competitive. SpaceX, you can see the liquid hydrogen is burning off right now. But in any case, SpaceX and Blue Origin and with the Vulcan, everybody wants to have their rocket parts be reusable. One of the ways they can do that.
So once again, I'm going to cut in here and we are going to switch up our streaming a little bit here. For it, we are going to pipe in the SpaceX stream as they are now live on their channel as well. So we are just waiting for them to start up their commentary, and then live on the ground, they'll be doing so as well. They actually pipe in the SpaceX commentary. So we'll turn that on. There we go. And we're just going to turn this down in my ear just a little bit. There we go. But yeah, we are just waiting for SpaceX to start up their feed here. We'll move over our live feed back here. But again, if you're just joining us, welcome here to the Launchpad. My name's Zach. You're watching our live launch coverage of Starlink-23. We're currently sitting at about T-minus 17 minutes. We are seeing venting from the Falcon 9 as it prepares for launch here today. This is the reflight of another booster with SpaceX. This is the seventh launch for this booster. This is booster 1058. Its previous launch most recently was on Starlink-20, so just 3 launches ago, and that launched on March 11th. So they almost broke the record with today's launch for turnaround time. They were 4 hours and about 11 minutes longer than their record for the fastest turnaround, as they are getting more rapid reusability of the Falcon 9 boosters. This is, I believe, the 3rd or 4th one that is going to be flying for a 7th time. So we are doing that. Looks like we did drop our feed from Kennedy, so we're going to stay here with SpaceX, and we'll see if we can get Marcus back there with it. But propellant loading has begun. We've been seeing the venting from the rocket as they prepare for their on-time launch. This is an instantaneous launch window here today for the 60 new Starlink satellites, as they need to get them in that right position to start building that constellation. We did hear from the CEO of SpaceX and their team yesterday that they confirmed they have 1,300 and I believe 20 satellites in orbit that are functioning and ready. So we are seeing, okay, we've got our feedback here. So we're going to pipe that back in. There we go. So the feed you are seeing here now live on your screen, again, we want to give a huge shout out to Marcus, our friend in the field at Kennedy Space Center here today. As they get closer and closer to launch, you can see that it's getting a little bit more crowded. So forgive a little bit of the shakiness there. The bleachers do shake as people go up and down, but we wanted to bring you this live unedited feed of just what it's like to be there for a launch. Anytime there's a day launch, we're going to, if possible, try to have this feed so you can experience what it would be like if you're there. Here at the Launchpad, we try to cover everything space flight, space engineering, and the future of space, and we're glad that you are here with us today. I'm going to drop in the chat a couple links that you might be interested. First one is a link over to our YouTube. We'd invite you to come over, hit the subscribe button. We're on our way to 1,000 subscribers. We want to see if we can hit 500 subscribers, maybe before today's launch. We've got a couple hundred to go. So if you're watching over on Facebook, join us over there. I'm sure you've got hundreds of subscriptions already, but what's just one more? You know, you're going to see stuff that you're interested in if you like space. We try to cover every Starlink launch, some Soyuz launches, of course, everything happening with Starship and more from there. We also have some exciting announcements coming up about other opportunities where we will be live on the pads on site for some launches that are historical coming up later this year. So make sure you follow us over on Twitter or Facebook for those. And the really best option for where you can stay up to date and get in advance knowledge of what we're going to be doing, sometimes even months before we announce it publicly, is jumping in our Discord. So we just dropped that link in the chat there. Our Discord's free. It's going to always have free sections to it, and we invite you to come there, get plugged in, have the behind the scenes. You could have seen the testing we were doing yesterday and then this morning, and it looks like SpaceX is going live here. So we'll patch them in the moment they start their live feed commentary and take a listen into how today's launch is progressing. But again, welcome here to the Launchpad. My name's Zach here. We're so excited that you're here for the live launch of Starlink-23. We've got 60 more Starlink satellites going up today into orbit, as SpaceX is about 5 launches away from completing what they say they will need to bring full global coverage of Starlink to everywhere in the world, at least their minimum levels. And then they are promising to launch thousands and thousands of more satellites to get to the fastest high-speed internet anywhere in the world. I know some friends that have it and have had an amazing experience already. Let's listen into SpaceX.
Wednesday, April 7th, and you're looking at a live view of Falcon 9 as it awaits its 12:34 p.m. Eastern Time launch from Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. My name is Jesse Anderson, a lead manufacturing engineer here at SpaceX, joining you from our headquarters in Hawthorne, California. You're watching a live webcast for our 24th Starlink mission and our 10th mission of 2021, all on reflown boosters. Starlink is a satellite internet constellation designed and manufactured by SpaceX to provide high-speed, low-latency internet to people living in remote and rural locations around the globe. As the team continues to expand globally, we are also continuing to connect communities here in the United States. Just recently, the Nooksack Indian tribe became participants in the Starlink beta program. Located in Whatcom County in Washington state, most of the Nooksack tribal areas did not have the infrastructure to deliver high-speed internet to its residents. The Nooksack Tribal Council is providing more than 100 households in their community with Starlink service who had been negatively impacted by not having internet during the pandemic. These families began to receive service last month and are now able to use the internet for work, school, and even access telemedicine. In other exciting news, last week we announced the 4-person crew who will be the first private citizens to fly on board Dragon. We'll share these new details for the Inspiration 4 mission a bit later in the webcast. Now we're currently at T-minus 11 minutes and 45 seconds from liftoff of our next batch of Starlink satellites. So with that, let's take a closer look at the rocket on your screen.
I'm Yomezo, a Dragon propulsion engineer here at SpaceX, and you're looking at a live view of Falcon 9 as it sits on our launch pad 40 at Cape Canaveral, Florida. Our 2-stage launch vehicle stands about 70 meters tall, and when it's fully fueled, it'll hold just over 1 million pounds of propellant, and the vehicle will burn through this in less than 3 minutes after liftoff. We prepped Falcon 9 for launch in our hangar at the base of the pad, and upon completing final checkouts, Falcon 9 rolled out to the pad with the Starlink payload and went vertical earlier this morning around 1:40 a.m. Eastern Time. The bottom 2/3 of the vehicle you see there is the first stage. It previously flew 6 times, having supported the launch of NASA astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley to the International Space Station, Anasis-2, CRS-21, Transporter-1, and 2 previous Starlink missions, the most recent of which was less than a month ago. The objective of the first stage is to accelerate the vehicle through the Earth's atmosphere to space and then separate from the rest of the rocket. Once the first stage separates from the second stage, it'll make its way back down to Earth and target a landing on our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You. To give you some perspective, our drone ships are equivalent in size to a football field, and the landing area that you see right there is approximately 200 feet by 150 feet. That's big enough that a hockey rink would fit inside that landing area of the drone ship. If successful, today's landing will mark the 79th recovery of an orbital class rocket. Above the first stage is the second stage, which has a single Merlin vacuum or MVAC engine, which ignites after the first stage separates. At full power, the Merlin vacuum engine operates with the greatest efficiency ever for an American-made hydrocarbon rocket engine. The second stage is what will carry our Starlink satellites to orbit. At the very top of the rocket there is a large nose cone, and this is called the fairing. Made of a carbon composite material, the fairing protects satellites on their way to orbit and is jettisoned approximately 3 minutes into flight. Just like our first stage, today we will be using a flight-proven fairing and will be attempting to recover each half again with a contracted recovery vessel named Sheila Bordelon. Reusability is critical to what we do here at SpaceX, and it allows SpaceX to refly the most expensive parts of the rocket, which in turn drives down the cost of space access. At just under T-minus 9 minutes, let's take a look at how we're progressing in the countdown.
The chief engineer held a technical poll at T-minus 1 hour, and the launch director held a propellant load and launch go-no-go poll at T-minus 38 minutes. Falcon 9 has been loading propellant since T-minus 35 minutes, and our fuel is a refined form of kerosene, which we call RP1. Our oxidizer is a super chilled liquid oxygen called LOX. And to densify the LOX, we chill it well below the boiling point, allowing us to fill the propellant tanks as much as possible. We use the same propellants on both stages, as the second stage is primarily a short version of the first stage, which is one of the many reliability features in the Falcon design. With fuel and oxidizer on hand, we need an ignition source to complete the fire triangle. For this, Falcon 9 uses TTEB, which you'll see at T-minus 2 seconds via the green spark right before the rocket takes off. In addition to RP-1 and LOX aboard, Falcon 9 uses helium to keep the tanks pressurized in flight and the propellant flowing correctly into the engines without air bubbles as the propellants deplete. Helium load began before the webcast went live and will continue to be topped off until a minute and a half before launch. Very shortly, we will open the pre-valves between the first stage engines and the propellant tanks. And at T-minus 7 minutes, engine chill will begin. This will cool the turbo pumps and avoid thermal shocks when we start the pumps at T-minus 2 seconds to light the Merlin engines. The vehicle is healthy and we're currently working no issues. Range is still green. Weather is looking great, as you can see on your screen. We got some beautiful blue skies over there in Florida. We have a 90% chance of favorable weather for T0. And all systems continue to be go for liftoff at 12:34 p.m. Eastern Time. If for some reason we don't launch today, we do have a backup opportunity tomorrow at 12:12 p.m. Eastern Time.
In February, we announced the world's first all-commercial astronaut mission to orbit, commanded by Jared Isaacman, the 37-year-old founder and chief executive officer of Shift4 Payments, and an accomplished pilot and adventurer. The mission is named after Inspiration 4 because of the 4-person crew's mission to inspire support for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital and send a humanitarian message of possibility. Since February, the other 3 crew members have been selected from the general public, and we are excited to tell you a little bit more about them, their roles, and the mission. Together, this 4-person crew represents the pillars and purpose for the Inspiration 4 mission: leadership, hope, prosperity, and generosity, with Jared representing leadership. Haley Arsenault of Memphis, Tennessee will serve as the medical officer overseeing medical care and experiments on the mission and occupy the seat of hope. Haley's selection is particularly poignant for this mission as she is a former cancer patient of St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Now at 29 years old, she has become an inspiration to others at the hospital where she works as a physician's assistant. Dr. Cyan Proctor is a 51-year-old entrepreneur, educator, trained pilot, and active voice in the space exploration community. She was awarded the seat of prosperity after being selected as the top entrant of an independently judged online business competition conducted by the Shift4 Shop e-commerce platform. Dr. Proctor will serve as the mission pilot and back up the commander and support related needs throughout the mission. Christopher Simbrowski is a 41-year-old mechanical fault detection and diagnostics lead at Lockheed Martin and United States Air Force veteran. He was awarded the seat of generosity after contributing to a special fundraising campaign for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Mr. Simbrowski will serve as the mission specialist and help manage payload, science experiments, communications to mission control, and more. Over the coming months, the crew will undergo rigorous commercial astronaut training by SpaceX before their targeted launch date, which is no earlier than September of this year.
We're currently just under 4.5 minutes from liftoff, and Falcon 9 is now moving into the final stages of the countdown. We're currently waiting for the transporter erector, or the TE, to retract. The TE is that structure next to the vehicle behind the fairing, as you can see there, and the clamps are starting to open up there. Now, after the clamps are fully open, the transporter erector will begin to retract away from the rocket slightly. And then at T0, hydraulics will pull the TE farther away from Falcon 9 to clear the way as the vehicle lifts off. It looks like the clamps are just about finished, and the TE is retracting back. It looks very slight, but it's just enough to move away from the vehicle. And we use the TE to roll the rocket out to the pad and raise it to its vertical launch position. It also provides liquids, gases, electrical connections to the second stage, as well as air conditioning to the payload fairing. And it looks like that TE retraction is now complete. The first and second stages are both nearly fully loaded with 1 million pounds of kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen. Superchilled liquid oxygen is our propellant oxidizer, and when its temperature is increased, it turns from liquid to gas, which is why you see some white clouds around Falcon 9, and that's that liquid oxygen meeting the warmer.
Bleed verification.
that liquid oxygen meeting that warmer, humid ambient air.
Stage 1 LOX load is complete.
And there's that call out that stage 1 LOX loading is now complete. Second stage will wrap up LOX load at T-minus 2 minutes. T-minus 60 seconds, Falcon 9 will be in startup, and this means that the rocket's autonomous internal flight computers have taken over the launch countdown. Just inside of T-minus 2 seconds, we light the Merlin M1D engines, and we use T-Tab, as I mentioned earlier, as our ignition fluid. And when T-Tab mixes with oxygen, it burns a green-colored flame, and then we allow the fuel into the thrust chamber, and the engine comes up to full power for liftoff at T0. Now, the Starlink payload continues to be healthy, and the Falcon 9 team is tracking no issues on the rocket. Weather is still looking beautiful over there in Cape Canaveral, and the range has cleared the surrounding ground, water, and airspace and are green for launch today.
So we are sitting at T-minus 2 minutes until the launch of Starlink-23. Again, we want to give a shout out to Marcus, who's on the ground, who's giving that feed that's down below me. We're going to go back to that dual view shot here for launch, and then I will jump back once the pad is clear and we are back onto the SpaceX feed exclusively once it's out of sight from Kennedy Space Center. Again, welcome to the launch pad. My name's Zach. I'm the host here. We're sitting at T-minus 30 seconds, waiting for the final go, no go for launch, but everything's been progressing well. That large vent that you're seeing now is that they are clearing the final fuels from what's in the Stromback arm, just safing the pad as we do the final 60 seconds until launch. You're watching the live launch of Starlink-23 right here on the launch pad.
Gazing over there, some blue skies. Great weather for a launch.
Falcon 9 in startup.
There's that call out that Falcon 9 is now in startup. Now we're just waiting on the final go for launch from the...
Stage 2, press for flight.
Waiting for the final go for launch from the launch director.
Falcon 9 Starlink LDs go for launch.
And there it is. All systems are go for launch.
T-minus 30 seconds.
Now let's listen into the terminal count and watch as Falcon 9 takes our stack of Starlink satellites into space.
Stage 1 startup pressures.
T-minus 15 seconds.
Falcon 9 is configured for flight.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition and liftoff.
Falcon is pitching downrange.
Stage 1 propulsion is on.
Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, carrying our stack of Starlink satellites to orbit.
Nominal power and telemetry.
Max Q is the next major event coming up here shortly, which will now be throttling down the engines, the M1D engines on that first stage for. Max Q is the maximum aerodynamic pressure that the vehicle sees on ascent.
Vehicle is supersonic.
And the weather, again, is looking beautiful, clear skies with an amazing view of Falcon on ascent there.
Max Q.
There's that call out that we have passed through Max Q. So in about a minute, we'll have 3 events happening back to back. That'll be main engine cutoff, or MECO, followed by stage separation and SES1, or second engine start 1. Now MECO is where we shut down all 9 of those M1D engines on the first stage that you see burning there on your screen. That's in preparation for the second event, which is stage separation.
MVAC is chilling in.
Just heard that call out that MVAC chillin has begun. Now stage separation is where the first stage separates from the second stage, and first stage will make its way back to Earth and attempt to land on our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, while stage 2 continues on its journey with the third event, second engine start 1. That's where we light up that MVAC engine, and it will propel the second stage along with the Starlink satellites to their targeted drop-off orbit. Just under 20 seconds or so away from those three events. That's MECO, stage separation, and SES-1. You should be able to see MECO here in a few seconds with those 9 M1D engines shutting down here shortly.
And MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
MVAC ignition and throttle up.
As we're continuing to watch here, just want to give a huge shout out to Marcus on the ground. What amazing tracking. Starlink-23 is now out of sight from the launch facility. So great job, Marcus, tracking that. Amazing. We are seeing that we have fairing separation, and we have had, we're just waiting for that. Looks like we might not be having all the cameras we normally do on board, but we're going to take a listen in.
The first and second stage on your screen there. Now, as a reminder, we will be attempting to recover the fairing halves today with our contracted recovery vessel named Sheila Bordelon.
So we will be bringing Marcus back in here a little bit later once we see the landing.
Acquisition of signal, Bermuda.
Of the booster. As payload deployment will take probably about an hour as usual for it. So stick here with us. We will be live until payload deployment is complete. And we'll be answering your questions. So if you have a question, let us know in the chat. It can be anything about SpaceX, Starlink, Starship, anything there. Marcus and I will be answering those for you here coming up once we maybe see deployment.
And
we're not too sure.
It does look like fairing separation was good. Now, as stage 2 takes our Starlink satellites to their targeted drop-off orbit, stage 1 will make its way back to Earth by executing 2 burns. The first is the entry burn. That's where 3 of the M1D engines will reignite. This helps to slow the stage down as it re-enters the upper part of the Earth's atmosphere. Now, the second burn is the landing burn, and this is the single engine burn that brings the vehicle speed down rapidly in order to land on the drone ship, and that is that center E9 engine, which is just powerful enough to slow the vehicle down to touch down on that drone ship.
Second stage is following the nominal trajectory.
And we do hear that call out that second stage is looking nominal. Unfortunately, we do not currently have any onboard views of that second stage at the moment, but everything is still looking nominal so far.
If you're just joining us here, we did have a successful liftoff of our stage 1 from Falcon 9 from Cape Canaveral SLS-40, and we're currently stage 2. We do not have the camera views right now, but we do have confirmation that it is still looking good. Again, our stage 2 is delivering our Starlink satellites to low Earth orbit. And that's our stack of 60 Starlink
Stage 1
satellites.
entry burn shut down.
Second stage continues to follow the nominal trajectory.
We just heard that call out that stage 1 entry burn was successful, and there you can see we do have our stage 2 camera view finally back, and it is looking good there with that MVAC nozzle glowing. And there's our stage 1 view back on our left as it continues to cruise down, getting ready for the start of its landing burn in about 30 seconds here. You can see those hypersonic grid fins of the first stage there on your left, and they control and help orient that first stage as it comes back down to
Stage
Earth.
1 transonic.
Again, stage 1 will be targeting landing on our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You. And right before landing, it will deploy 4 carbon fiber landing legs.
Start of terminal guidance.
Stage 1 landing burn.
Have the start of stage 1 landing burn. This burn will last about 30 seconds. You can see it coming down towards the Atlantic Ocean there. What a beautiful view from that stage 1 camera.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
What an amazing view.
Stage 1 landing confirmed.
What an amazing view of that stage 1 landing burn. We got our cameras back just in time for that. And this marks our 79th successful recovery of an orbital class rocket. And the 7th recovery of this particular booster.
Expected loss of signal, Kate.
We had an expected loss of signal there, but
Nominal orbital insertion.
we did have confirmation of second engine cutoff and a good orbit. And now stage 2 is going to coast in this orbit for the next 35 minutes or so. And while that happens, take a look at this animation showcasing where we are in the coast phase, and we'll see you back here at T plus 45 minutes for a second stage relight.
And that is it. Starlink is making her way to the final orbit. We're going to just pull their music down here just a little bit. But I have to say, like everyone in the chat and in our Discord, they need to keep that view. That was one of the most incredible views we have had for a landing, and very happy that we got to see that today, that vertical shot coming down. You can see the slight time delay there. But we're going to be answering your questions. So if you have questions, let us know in the chat. I'm going to be patching Marcus, who is live on the ground in here in just a second here. We're going to keep this live. We're going to pull SpaceX off. Let's see how to do this. We want 3 people. Let's go this way. And we're going to pull Marcus up. And we're going to put SpaceX there. And we're going to unmute Marcus. And Marcus, can you hear us? We can't hear you. You might be muted.
Mic is on. Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you. There we go.
There we go.
So how's it going there on the ground?
Okay, so that was amazing. Not sure if you had me muted or not, but the sound, it did hit us, and it was amazing here.
Yeah, we patched you guys in and could hear the cheering. Made us feel like we were there. So we're so glad that we had that from you today.
And yeah, as you can see right behind my shoulder, there's the vehicle assembly building.
Perfect clear day. Couldn't have been a better day. It's probably hot though.
Yeah, luckily we do have a few clouds rolling in, so those gave a little bit of shade.
A little bit there. Was it pretty full?
Yeah. Most of the bleachers ended up getting a little full.
Yeah.
So now I'm heading back over to the, let me flip the camera real quick for you guys.
If you want to get one of those masks that Marcus is wearing, link in the description of our YouTube video. Save 10% with promo code LAUNCHDAY.
So now I'm going to head back over to the Apollo Saturn V Center so I can get a bus back to the main visitor center.
Awesome. Let's see. Cutting in and out a little bit, but that is okay. If you have any questions, though, about SpaceX, Starlink, what you saw today, let us know. We might pull up a replay here, as we do have about 30 minutes or so until we see the scheduled second engine burn to finalize the orbit, and then another break, about 20-25 minutes, and then we will see deployment of Starlink-23, 60 more satellites. We're just going to pop Marcus down here just for a second. Yeah, another successful launch and successful landing. This means this booster will be refurbished and possibly brought back into use for a 8th flight here. Currently, they've done twice now, a 27-day and a few hour turnaround. So we could see this one as early as early May for a launch. Oh, we got Marcus back here, so we'll pull him back in. There we go. We're on cellular, so we're trusting the satellites. Elon, if you want to send us like a Starlink package, we won't say no.
Version?
Yeah, just like we'll beta test the mobile one. You've already filed with the FCC. We'd love to test it out for you. But yeah.
But now I can give everybody a little bit of an extra view here.
You know, just a little teaser. There we go. We're going to make Marcus a little bit bigger here so everyone can see it. There we go. That is the Saturn V in the Apollo Center at Kennedy Space Center. Absolutely amazing view.
So right now I'm standing.
Say that one more time there, Marcus. We heard you were standing and then it cut out.
Oh, underneath the first stage right here.
Okay, awesome.
And now here we're coming up on the second stage. With the 5 J2s. And now we come up on the third stage.
So if you saw a couple months ago, we did see the announcement of the first Artemis astronauts. This was actually in this building. Oh, that's cool. They've added an environmental projection. I was at Kennedy over 10 years ago, so I am very excited to, we'll kind of tease it. The numbers are down. Be back at Kennedy later this year for an upcoming launch. More details are coming soon about that. If you're in our Discord, you already know what we're talking about because we've been making some plans for that, but very excited to be back on the ground. For sure happening later this fall. So we'll be, if you follow our channel, you probably can guess what it is, but we're excited to be there. We're going to be hopefully at Kennedy for a couple of days plus the launch, just to give you a full tour of Kennedy, the sights and sounds. If Starlink wants to line up, we might do a double launch coverage from on the ground. Of course, we'll be meeting up with Marcus and doing a lot of stuff there. So we're excited to bring that to you. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss that. We've also got an upcoming interview with the entire crew of Inspiration 4 in the coming weeks, so stay with that. And our new mini-series here on the Launchpad, starting with amazing people, relatable people, amazing stories, inspirational adventures, and we want to invite you to watch that. The first interviews are happening very soon, so make sure you stay tuned to our Twitter and our YouTube to know when those come out. And if you think you have a story that you would like to share, make sure to reach out to us, and we'll see if we can arrange that with us. If you happen to work for any of the major space agencies, definitely give us a call. We'd love to connect with you while either from here or while you're down in the field as well. So, but yeah, you're watching a live view of the from the Apollo Center of the Saturn V at Kennedy Space Center. How busy it is in there. Can you pan the room? I'm curious what they've been doing with COVID. Okay, not bad.
A lot of people went for the buses immediately.
I would say so. It's almost empty. That's amazing.
So we had the lunar module adapter with the lunar module on display right here. And then we have boilerplate replicas of the command and service modules, since the real ones are over on the far end of the building.
Right. So we've got a question in our Discord. The engine bell of that third stage looks rather small. Shouldn't it be vacuum optimized?
Well, that one at the size it is vacuum optimized. Those ones were designed like that.
So they're just a smaller engine bell, probably because of the not a huge payload that it's carrying.
Now let's only because I don't want to spend too long over here.
No, makes sense.
We'll do a quick walk back to the other side, and you can see the tanks. And
yeah, that's a big tank.
Replica of the lunar rover, or the buggy.
That's so cool.
Oh, actually, there's something over this way I can do for everybody.
Is that the hologram thing to your left?
Yep, this is one of them. They have two. This one is Charlie Duke. So they have holograms of former astronauts.
That's cool. Oh, technology.
Yep, and hold on, I'm gonna get online over here for this real quick.
Did you touch it? Really? Yes. There you go.
So I'm not sure how well that's focusing on the plaque.
Not too bad. It's pretty bright, but that's okay.
Maybe when I get closer, it'll focus a little better.
It'll focus a little bit. So why don't you tell us what this is, Marcus?
So this is a moon rock collected by astronaut Jack Schmitt at the Apollo 17 lunar module site.
It's amazing. And why are people so excited to gather around this rock?
Because you can touch it.
You get to touch it.
Touch the moon.
Woo!
Right there.
And just think, in about 10 years, we can have our Mars sample right next to it. We've got Perseverance preparing the samples.
Yep, we do have that coming.
Coming soon in a future decade. Touch the moon and Mars.
Yep. Now we walk back.
So what's it like becoming a YouTuber vlogger? Suddenly.
A bit more prep than I thought there would be.
Mm-hmm.
Last night and this morning, making sure I had everything that I needed. You know what, tour again.
Who doesn't love a good detour?
And have the Apollo 14 Kitty Hawk capsule. And there's more lunar samples on display in here. All of these ones we are unable to touch.
Well, you'd hope they'd preserve some of them, especially from the original missions.
Yep. And actually, right over here is Alan Shepard's suit that he used to walk on the moon.
So cool.
Complete with the lunar dust still on it.
Well, you couldn't clean. They couldn't exactly send it for dry cleaning.
You can kind of see it on the boots more.
Yeah, absolutely. From, what was it, 45 years ago at this point?
I believe so.
50? 45 to 50, somewhere in there?
Definitely more than 50, because Apollo Yeah, a little less than 50 because Apollo 11 was 50 years ago.
I'd love to point out this big vault door that Marcus is walking through. Like, this is not a small door hiding these things. Like, that's cool.
It's a fake door, though. It's not a real one.
But that's what they make you think.
Exactly. And of course, to get back to the buses, you have to go through the gift shop.
Gift shop. So if anyone sees anything they like, let us know. I've already spent about $500 just in what we can see already.
I've spent way more than that in Lego sets.
Me too. Space shuttle coming soon. Going right over here somewhere. I'll plug it again while we're in the gift shop. If you want to get out one of those masks that Marcus is wearing, we got another number of other masks and some shirts and some other things. Head on over to the link in the description, the Launchpad shop. We're working on launching a new shop as well with some exciting new stuff. But if you want to pick up one of those original masks, head on over there. They're as affordable as we can make them, but Marcus has said they're pretty comfortable. And they look cool, so why not? We've got ones with Falcon 9s on them, Falcon Heavy, Starship, a few others, I think. I want to say we have a Perseverance one, or maybe that one's coming still.
Yep, no, the Perseverance is available.
So lots of stuff to get, and of course, everything that goes from that goes right back into making this possible to have us on location, have the studio running and stuff there, so we appreciate your support in that way, but you don't have to spend money to help us. Hit the like and the share and the subscribe, and that is always a big help as well. So I'm guessing you're just in the bus waiting zone now?
Yep, waiting online for that.
Awesome. I'm going to just pull up SpaceX's feed here just for a second, see what we're looking at. So we're T plus 25 minutes since the liftoff of Starlink-23. We've still got about 25 minutes or so until we see the quick burn for the second stage. Again, this is a very quick 1-second burn to finalize the orbit, and then we will have another 20 minutes until we see payload deployment.
And just since there's nothing really interesting going on, I'm going to turn off my camera for the moment. I'll still be
Sounds good, Marcus. We'll keep your audio on, so if you want to say anything, we'll still hear you.
Yep.
But yeah, we're going to pull up here as we await the short burn. We're going to pull up a replay of launch here. Now, we don't have the replay from Marcus's view, but we do have the replay from SpaceX's view. So just give me a second to pull that up here in just a moment. Again, if you have any questions, let us know in the chat. We are here to answer those for you. And we're going to pull up this feed here starting at the T-minus 30-second mark.
Now let's listen into the
and there we go. So this is a replay of what just happened about 20 minutes ago, 25 minutes ago. And we'll just give a little bit of audio here
T-minus 15 seconds.
as we listen into launch. Now, some of the cameras we did not have access to as we normally would, but we do have an amazing view of landing coming up here.
3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition and liftoff.
Pitching downrange.
Such a perfect crystal clear blue day for a launch there. It's the first day launch in quite a while for Starlink, so we are excited to have been able to bring that to you.
From Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, carrying our stack of Starlink satellites to orbit.
Nominal power and telemetry.
Max Q is the next major event coming up here shortly, which will now be throttling down the engines, the M1D engines on that first stage for. Max Q is the maximum aerodynamic pressure that the vehicle sees on ascent.
Vehicle is supersonic.
And the weather, again, is looking beautiful, clear skies with an amazing view of Falcon on ascent there.
Max Q.
There's that call out that we have passed through Max Q. So in about a minute, we'll have 3 events happening back to back. That'll be main engine cutoff, or MECO, followed by stage separation and SES1, or second engine start 1. Now MECO is where we shut down all 9 of those M1D engines on the first stage that you see burning there on your screen. That's in preparation for the second event, which is stage separation.
MVAC is chilling in.
Just heard that call out that MVAC chillin has begun. Now stage separation is where the first stage separates from the second stage, and first stage will make its way back to Earth and attempt to land on our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, while stage 2 continues on its journey with the third event, second engine start 1. That's where we light up that MVAC engine, and it will propel the second stage along with the Starlink satellites to their targeted drop-off orbit. Just under 20 seconds or so away from those 3 events, that's MECO, stage separation, and SES1. You should be able to see MECO here in a few seconds with those 9 M1D engines shutting down here shortly.
And MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
MVAC ignition and throttle up.
And there we've had main engine cutoff and stage separation. You can see that from the ground tracking view there. We did have a good call out of second engine start 1 on the second stage.
Fairing jettison confirmed.
And we heard the call out for fairing deploy.
So this was at the point that
looks like
we
don't
didn't have
onboard
the
camera
second,
views, but we can
as she
still-
says, the onboard cameras. They do patch in here a little bit later on. So we're going to just jump to that point here of the feed where we were able to see the second stage cut into the feed here. We're just going to jump here and we'll bring this back up.
Entry burn was.
So this is right when we got the feeds back there.
We have our stage 2 camera view finally back, and it is looking good. MVAC nozzle glowing. And there's our stage 1 view back on our left as it continues to cruise down, getting ready for the start of its landing burn in about 30 seconds here. You can see those hypersonic grid fins of the first stage there on your left, and they control and help orient that first stage as it comes back down to
Stage
Earth.
1 transonic.
Again, stage 1 will be targeting landing on our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You. And right before landing, it will deploy 4 carbon fiber landing legs.
Start of terminal guidance.
Stage 1 landing burn.
Have the start of stage 1 landing burn. So burn will last about 30 seconds. You can see it coming down towards the Atlantic Ocean there. What a beautiful view from that stage 1 camera.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
What an amazing view.
Stage 1 landing confirmed.
What an amazing view of that stage 1 landing burn. We got our cameras back just in time for that. And this marks our 79th successful recovery of an orbital class rocket. And the 7th.
Yeah, so absolutely an amazing view. We had seen that landing view before from them of the vertical, but the only 2 other times that we have actually seen that view was from when the drone ships were closer to the actual coast and within station. This is the first time it was ever in the middle of the ocean, over 500. Let me see what it is. I believe it's either 550 or 650 kilometers off the coast. So middle of the ocean, and we were getting those live HD views there. So that was a replay. We're currently tracking Starlink-23 as we are about 12 minutes away from that quick 1-second burn just to finalize orbit prior to deployment of the 60 more Starlink satellites from it. But I feel like I say it every Starlink broadcast. It's the usual. SpaceX knows what they're doing. Easy up, easy down for it as we are watching them do these quite rapidly. We saw 4 launches last month with Starlink, and then we do have 4 more, I believe, this month on the docket. Still waiting for dates on a few of those, as well as we have our Crew 2 launch coming up here in just a couple of weeks. So make sure you subscribe to us here on YouTube so you can watch that live coverage. We generally do our live launch coverage on YouTube and Facebook, our exclusive interviews, one-on-ones, our new video series that are coming up, lots in the works for here at the Launchpad. Those are all going to be exclusively on YouTube, so make sure you subscribe there so you don't miss those. If you have a video idea or a question for our weekly updates that we're going to be resuming this week, I know we've taken a few weeks off. We've been preparing some stuff in the studio to get us to the next level, so we're going to be back with those weekly updates starting very soon. And the first episode, we're going to do a whole recap of everything that happened in March, because there was a lot, and then we are back with weekly updates for here in April, covering everything from SpaceX, SLS, Rocket Lab, Astra, Soyuz, so many ULA, so many things to cover as the space race part 2 really starts to kick up, and we see this. So we're going to take just a quick little break here. We're going to leave you here with the music from SpaceX. If you have a question, let us know in the chat. I'm going to be here, and I will be back just a couple minutes prior to this quick burn to finalize the orbit. You're watching the live launch and now deployment coverage of Starlink-23 right here on the Launchpad. My name's Zach, and I'll be right back.
Welcome back to the webcast for our 24th Starlink mission from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. So far, we've had an on-time liftoff at 12:34 p.m. Eastern Time. Our first stage came back and landed on our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You. And now our second stage is awaiting relight, or SES-2, second engine start 2, in just a few seconds here. And it'll just be a 1 second burn. It's a very quick burn. It may not look like much on your screen, but it does take us to our targeted drop-off orbit. So we should hear that call out coming shortly here. And there you saw it very quickly on your screen. We did get that green color flame. That's that T-TEB that I mentioned. We did have SES-2 and SECO-2. Waiting for confirmation of good orbit. And we did confirm a good orbit. So again, our Starlink sats will ultimately end up in a LEO, or low Earth orbit, about 550 kilometers above the Earth's surface, which is different than your typical geostationary or geosat, which orbits roughly 36,000 kilometers above Earth. Now we have another 15-minute coast phase before we deploy our next batch of Starlink satellites into orbit. And during this time, the spacecraft will start to spin along its central axis, giving the Starlink satellites the momentum that they need to space themselves out over time after they deploy. So while this happens, sit back and enjoy some more space jams. We'll see you back here at T+1 hour and 3 minutes.
So just jumping back on here just for a few minutes, as we just saw the successful second stage burn, finalizing that orbit for the Starlink satellites. Now, they don't get deployed at their final orbit. They get deployed, as you can see, about 274 kilometers or so, but their final deployment...
Expected loss of signal, Diego Garcia.
Their final deployment orbit will be at 550 kilometers. Currently, I was checking last night, there are about 8 trains of Starlinks. We call them trains because they launch 60 at a time. And over a number of weeks, they slowly spread out, get into place, and move to their final orbits. There's about 8 trains currently in the process of being deployed. I'll see if I can pull up that tracker here in just a few minutes to show you what I'm talking about. But this will be the 9th one, getting ready to get into their final orbit. SpaceX confirmed yesterday that they had over 1,300. I believe this will put them right close to that 1,400 mark. And by the 28th launch of Starlink, so coming up probably in the next month and a half, they will have enough Starlink satellites to offer service globally anywhere in the world. They were going to be doing some more polar orbits, which I'm very excited about because right now Starlink just doesn't get north enough for me. There are some people in my city testing it and apparently can get service, but if they were just a little more north, we get some better service there. So as they make a bigger constellation, now this is only shell 1 of Starlink. So you might be asking, what does that mean for shells? Well, there are going to be at least 8 shells of Starlink satellites. So shell 1 is going to contain the first batch of satellites, and that's going to have about 1,400 in it. So what we're coming up to now, shell 2 is going to be just slightly different inclination. So instead of 53 degrees, be at 53.2 degrees, and it's going to be 10 kilometers lower, so 540 kilometers in altitude, and that's going to have another over 1,100 satellites, and then it goes on from there. Now, we are also expecting to see the phase 2, which is where shell 6, 7, 8, and 9 come into effect. Now, somewhere in here, we do know that we are going to see the transition to the second generation of Starlink satellites for it. Shell 2 is currently already approved for deployment for it. The SpaceX has applied for some changes to their filing for a different orbit amendment, so they're waiting to hear back on that for it. But shell 3 and 4 and 5 are also currently approved. Shells 6 through 8, SpaceX is filing for permits and finalizing all of that as they're still designing that second generation of Starlink satellites. But SpaceX has until March 2024 to be complete with half complete of phase 1, and phase 1 must be fully complete by March 2017. Phase 2, so this is shells 6 through 8, must also be half complete by March 2024 and then finished by November 2027. If they do not complete this in this time frame, they actually risk losing their frequency bands that they have set up for their constellation. So there's going to be a lot more launches. I believe they were targeting like over 14,000 at one point for them. So we're going to be seeing many, many more of these. Obviously, how are they going to be able to complete this without needing to do like 1,000 Starlink Falcon 9 launches? Well, that comes down to Starship. So that's one reason Starship is moving ahead so quickly. The first payloads we will see on Starship probably for a while is going to be the deployment of Starlink from it. With currently, Falcon 9 can carry a maximum of 60 Starlink satellites. We have seen previously on some of the ride shares that they have included some other some Starlink satellites just to fill up the fairing while they are being deployed, if on the right inclination. But with Starship, they could launch over 400. It is expected. So that would obviously very much help with only needing, maybe 100, 150 launches, which still a lot of launches when you think back to, the last 10 years where really other than Soyuz, there wasn't a lot happening other than the Falcon 9 testing. But things are really picking up here. We're going to, as they said, listen back into some space jams as we wait for Starlink deployment, which is coming up next at T plus 1 hour, 3 minutes, and 56 seconds. So we're just over 10 minutes away. If you have any questions, let us know in the chat. You're watching the live launch and now deployment of Starlink-23 right here on the launch pad. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. If you're just now joining us, we had an on-time liftoff at 12:34 p.m. Eastern Time. Our first stage booster had a successful 7th flight, as well as landed for its 7th time and the 79th recovery overall. Stage 2 completed its 2 burns to enable reaching the targeted drop-off orbit, and now we are coming up on the deployment of our Starlink satellites here shortly. And we are waiting to see if we can get some live views. Otherwise, if we don't, we should be able to hear the call out for payload deploy. And that should be coming here in just under 20 seconds or so. And again, our second stage was spinning in preparation for the deployment of these Starlink satellites, and that gives them some momentum to spread themselves out over time after they deploy.
Payload deployment confirmed.
There we go. There's that call out, and we do have a visual of those Starlink satellites drifting away from second stage out in space. Now again, this is their drop-off orbit. So shortly, they will deploy their solar array, and over the next few days and weeks, they will distance themselves from each other and use their onboard ion thrusters to make their way to their operational orbit.
And with that, that brings our webcast to a close. Thank you to the Range and FAA for supporting today's mission. If you're interested in Starlink service, head over to starlink.com and sign up. And as always, thanks for joining us and have a great afternoon.
And as usual, that is it. That will conclude our live coverage of Starlink-23, launched from Slick 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida, USA. I want to once again thank Marcus for being on the ground for us and then giving us that tour of the Saturn V facility. We had not talked about that, but that was awesome for it. But that is it. One really cool thing that we wanted to mention that we'll be highlighting over on Twitter is that the stream today on Marcus's side was solar powered. So that was really cool to have his phone and camera and everything being charged by a solar panel. So we're excited to be continuing that in the future. So we know we will have power so we can continue these live launches. Hopefully there'll be some more day launches here in the near future. Kennedy Space Center is open to the public during these launches most of the time, but when it is an evening launch and Kennedy Space Center is normally closed, then the facility is not open to the public, so we can't get as close then. Then we normally get some really awesome streak photos from a little bit further away, but that is going to do it for us here at the launch pad. Again, my name's Zach. Here at the launch pad, we cover space, space flight, space engineering, the future of space, and STEM, and we are excited that you are here with us. Thank you so much. Subscribe to us over on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter. Like us on Facebook, and get plugged in on Discord. I just dropped the Discord link in the chat. It's free. You can go behind the scenes, help us with new videos, scripts, and different things there. If you have any questions, let us know over on Discord, or tweet us, or send us a message on Facebook. That's going to do it for us here at the Launchpad. Till next time, this is Zach with the Launchpad.